What is up, everybody? Welcome back. It's Thursday night. Thursday night means one thing. You are watching a brand new episode of Jackson Kayak Dock Talk. Let's go. What is up, everybody? Hope you're having a great Thursday. Hope you're staying dry if you're basically from the Mississippi River to the coastline, because it is nasty out there for a lot of you folks right now. So hope you're staying dry. Hope you're staying safe. Florida, you're with us. That's all we can say right now. Um, but yeah, got a guest tonight. Back with a little one-on-one conversation tonight. We've been telling you guys that Doc Talk's going to be a little bit more split up as we move into winter. We're going to do the panel, and then some of them we're going to meet some of the Jackson Kayak team members one-on-one, kind of get to hear their story. And man, Joshua Evans, you've been with us for how long now, Jackson Kayak?
I don't know, 10, 11, 12 years, somewhere in there.
It's been a good ride, man. You've had a good ride. You've been with us, like I said, a long time, and tonight we're going to find out a little bit more about you and how you got started in the outdoors game and the sport of kayak fishing, and just kind of walk us through everything here. So, starting
Yes,
out of the
sir.
gate, like we typically do with the Orion podcast, we're going to ask you, man, like, tell us where you grew up. Tell us where you got started. Take us back to kindergarten. Joshua running around in diapers carrying fishing poles. What do you got, man?
Yeah, man. Originally I was born in Long Beach, California, and I grew up all over Southern California. Spent a lot of time in Riverside, Costa Mesa, Newport Beach, Huntington Beach. Bouncing back and forth between my mom's house and my pop's. Um, and I grew up. I started fishing at about 3 years old. My dad was a ultra avid angler, and we did a lot of saltwater stuff. We lived probably 20 minutes from the beach. He had a center console. It was like an 18-foot Klamath made up in Washington. And before that, even actually, he would take me out to this really poorly lit pier. It would start out the night before, and he'd say, "Hey, boy, you want to go fishing?" And I was like, "Well, yeah." You know, Even when I was 3, I was like, "Absolutely, like, yeah." They say, "Okay, we'll go get the coffee ready," which meant taking a couple scoops of Nesquik and putting them in our coffee cups. So the next morning we'd get up. I wouldn't sleep, I'd be all anxious and excited. We'd stop at 7-Eleven, get our cheapy old Joe, and get on the road. And we'd get down there, and we'd walk out to this poorly lit little dock in Newport Harbor, and he'd have me start tying up rigs. Right? He taught me the Palomar knot, which to this day it's the only knot I really use, because it works and it's damn strong and
Yeah.
it's easy. A 3-year-old can learn it literally. Um, so he'd have me tie up all these rigs, and then he'd hand me a pole, and he'd be like, "All right, see that buoy out there? Start casting." And I'm like, "There's no bait, Dad." And he's like, "Start casting. When you hit that buoy, you can actually fish." And I'm like, "Yo, are you serious, Dad? Like, why? You're fishing. Why can't I fish? I did all this work." And he's like, "Trust me, just start casting." And I used to get really frustrated because there was a few trips, where I didn't get to fish at all. I just kept casting. I mean, all the way until the middle of the afternoon from dark. And but I got better and I got better. And then it got to the point where every single first cast I'd hit that buoy, you know, and then I'd be fishing and I'd be learning stuff, and he'd be talking about different fish behaviors and different things like that. And again, this is still all saltwater. Uh, kind of simultaneously to that, when I was visiting with my mom, I had my
Mhm.
stepdad Brandy, and Brandy, he grew up, hey, go dig up some worms, let's go catch some bluegill or whatever's biting,
Right.
catfish, bass, whatever, trout fishing. We were big on trout fishing, so we'd always go and slay the trout up in the mountains and whatnot. So I had a pretty well-rounded kind of appreciation of fishing, and I preferred saltwater just because the fish were bigger, and as a little kid, the bigger the fish, the better it is, and the more engaged
Oh
they
yeah.
are, really. Um, as I got older, I still remember actually. I went to a place called Canyon Lake, which is in Riverside County out in Southern California. Um, my stepdad, me, a couple of my cousins, a couple of my uncles, we went out there and we would go out to Canyon Lake. And it was a private lake, but we'd drive a dirt back road and we'd sneak in the backside and we'd camp there overnight. And we dig night crawlers and stuff the night before, so we had a big bucket of worms and we were ready to rock. We got out there one time and he hands me this little, it's about a 2.5 inch Rapala, little gold minnow looking joint. Um, and he's like, "Here, try this out. You catch them all day on live bait. Let's see what you can do with this." And it was like right as the sun was going down, so the bite picks up really good then. And I went out there, and I think second or third cast, man, bam, it was like a 4.5 pounder. And I was like,
Oh
"Oh,
yeah.
okay, okay, I see it." And then so I started getting more curious um, as the years progressed, and I got a little older, and you know, I started buying my own tackle here and there. I'd still, get gifted quite a bit of stuff from my dad and my stepdad. Um, but I was always like on the weekends, if I wasn't mowing lawns or doing some kind of BMX stuff, I was, hey, go drop me off at the lake. You know what I mean? Or I'm gonna go fish the river bottom and catch crawdads and then take me to the lake. You know what I mean? Um,
Right.
just always outdoors, always doing something, trying to stay out of trouble. The areas that I grew up in sucked. I'll just be completely blunt. Um, Always lots of gangs and drugs and other nonsense, and as a kid, my parents, they both worked a lot and I was left to my own devices pretty much a lot of the time. So, I had to make some decisions. And I kind of strayed away from fishing a little bit when I got to the latter part of high school. I was really into
Mhm.
playing basketball and kinda, you know, uh, I was doing graffiti a lot of graffiti art. I started that at about 13, so I was doing a lot of, uh, painting late at night in places I probably shouldn't be. Um, and all the fun things that come with that kind of life, I guess. So I kinda stepped away from fishing there, all the way through until probably my early 20s, and,
Yeah, I think that happens to a lot of us, though, wouldn't you? I mean,
yeah,
high school happens, girls happen, things change. I mean,
yep.
it's there. We know how to do it, but then it's like, well, this is a lot more fun right
Y
now.
your priorities change quite a bit, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Um, Fast forward, God, 20 I was 25, I was working for a place called Epic Internet, and at the time, it was the largest privately held ISP in the nation. Well, I don't know if you're familiar with what happened out in California during was it late 90s? They had the dot-com layoffs, and a
Mhm.
lot of internet service providers and other technology companies, either shut their doors or sold their tech support and their customer bases to larger companies. Well, one day I go into work and they're like, "Hey, you don't have a job anymore." And I'm like, "Say what?" Okay. And I had worked my way up in the company. I was the youngest manager in the company, but now I'm in a job or in an applicant pool full of people with all these degrees. I could work circles
Mhm.
around them, but I didn't have the paper to get my foot in the door.
Right.
And I spiraled pretty quickly, lost everything. Um, it was pretty tough. Uh, During that, I also got married, crazy enough, and then my wife also went through some stuff, and we ended up homeless. And that lasted for about a year and a half. And I went down to a recruiter one day. We were staying in like this long-term motel, and I went to a recruiter. I said, "Man, how fast can you put a roof over our head?" And he's like, "Well, why do you want to join the army?" I said, "Well, sir, I'm tired of getting shot at and I can't shoot back, and I'm hungry, and more than anything, my family needs a roof over their head, and I need to fix
Mm.
my life." You know, and that was the beginning of a lot of really beautiful things. Um, you know, when you're going to sleep at night and you don't know, or you don't sleep because your wife needs to sleep and you got to protect her. um it does some things to your heart, your soul, your brain, and when I joined the military, the US Army, it allowed me to gain all that back, all the confidence, and granted me a whole new appreciation for the very simple things in life, and a different perspective that a lot of other folks at the time in my sphere at least didn't have. Um, I went I started fishing again. I was stationed out of Fort Hood, Texas. They call it the Great Place, which there's a lot of great fish in there. And I started at first. I started just shore banging, fishing. I had a couple local docks I'd go fish regularly, and we had a unit event on Belton Lake, um, and we had kayak rentals. And I remember my wife's not a big fan of being out on the water, but I said, "Come on, come out in this kayak with me. It's free. Let's go." We got this tandem kayak. We get out in the middle of the lake, and they have these huge gar there. And I have my little spinning rod set up, ultralight type deal, right? And I'm fly lining minnows and catching bass with it. Well, I end up hooking into a giant gar. And I don't know how it didn't break me off, but this thing towed both of us in our tandem kayak around for what seemed like an eternity. And my wife is freaking out because by the time the fish got tired enough to come up next to the boat, she realized how big it was, and she reached over and popped my line. And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And to this day, she still reminds me of that, and she's like, "That's why I don't like kayak fishing with you because you do stupid things." And I said, "Well." So, anyways, uh, keep fast forward a little bit. I started getting really competitive.
Mhm.
Got introduced to being a co-angler, bass boat stuff, and I got really excited. And I was like, I want to buy a bass boat. And my wife's like, no, you don't make enough money. Blah blah blah. And then I was about to get medically separated from the army. Had some injuries from deployments and such. And I fished the Wounded Warrior tournament and I won it. With me and my partner won it. And I turned to her again. I said, "Hey, I'm ready to buy a bass boat. Like, I'm gonna go do this." And she's like, "Well, we can't afford it. Financially, it's just not in the books. Keep, fishing off the back of somebody else's boat, and have fun with that. And that's what we can do right now." I said, "Okay." Well,
Well, and that's where you
so
can learn. You can learn a lot
yeah,
that
you
way as
absolutely
well. I mean,
Absolutely. I mean, I learned that I didn't like co-angling as a whole. So I had some great experiences, but then I also had other experiences where you know I got back of the boated, so to speak. I was out fishing
oh
the
yeah.
the boater, and they'd get mad and turn the boat, and I'm like, okay, I'm casting to emptiness. Like, this is not cool. Um,
Mhm.
right around that same time, a buddy of mine, Berto Talbian, he's a local kayak guy around here. He said, "Hey man," he goes, "You wanna come out and fish a Heroes on the Water event as a kayak guide?" And I said, "Well, I've never been in a kayak other than this one other time, really." And he said, "Well, come out. You know how to fish good, and we can help some other veterans out. You're a veteran. You get it." And I was like, "Okay, cool." So I went out and I did that, and I had a blast. I had an absolute
Mhm.
blast. It was on Mattawoman Creek, which turns out now to this day is like one of my favorite fisheries out here. Um, and I said, okay. And he said, "Hey," at the end of the event, he said, "You wanna go to? I know you're competitive. You want to come out to one of our local series tournaments and check it out?" And I said, "Sure," which was Mid Atlantic Kayak Bass Fishing Series, which I've now been a part of for God about a decade now. So I went out there and I had my little cheapy dick sporting goods special, and I see all these crazy rigged out kayaks, big graphs, and this is still early on in the kayak tournament scene, really. They're still using a camera and bringing your SD card to the back to
Oh
the
yeah.
check-in and
So what
identify.
year are you thinking? Let's put it
Yeah,
in perspective for folks. What year are you thinking that was?
2013,
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
about
12,
2013, yeah.
13. Yeah.
2012. Actually, it was about 2012. Now I think about it. Um, and so I went out there and I fished the whole season in that little boat, and I was sore every time I got out of it. And I was just like, I'm a big guy in a little boat, you know what I mean? And during that off season, I had already seen some Jacksons that I was really attracted to, and a buddy of mine said, "Dude, around here, there's a couple shops that they usually have pretty good clearances. I know your money's always tight, and your wife, uh, wants you to be really responsible in that way." He had to remind me because, like I said, I want to get a bass boat. Um,
Now
and
let's back up. I think we missed
yeah.
we missed something. We missed something. How did you end up from California to Texas? How'd you end up out east?
Oh yeah. Well, I'll get to that. I'll get to that. It's coming. Um, Actually, I'll just tell you. So yeah. Um, about halfway through my army career, after my first deployment, I decided I didn't want to do what I was doing in the army anymore. I'd already had one pretty significant injury, and I said, I got to think about after the army because I don't know how long I'll be able to do this. And I'm one of those people that if I
Uh,
can't do it fully, I don't want to do it.
right.
Especially once you're in a position like you're a non-commissioned officer, you're a leader of soldiers, and if you can't lead them from the front, then you shouldn't be in that role. You should train somebody else up, and you should move on. And so I reclassed, changed over to a satellite communications job, which at first I thought was just the greatest thing on earth. I was like, oh man, I can make people from this side of the earth talk to people on the battlefield and da 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 da. And I was just thought I was untouchable. Um, and then during that process, we went down to Georgia. We were there for about a year, and then I deployed like as soon as I got done with school. Deployed again, and then I asked my wife. I said, "Hey, so while I was deployed on that second deployment, I got told, hey, here's your options for your next duty station, and it was Belgium, which sounded amazing, right?
Oh
Or
yeah.
Maryland, and I called my wife and I said, "All right, this is a very serious conversation." I said, "Do you want to travel Europe for the next few years until it's time for me to get out? Or do you want to buy a house?" And I knew how important it was to her and to me really to own a home after what we had been through in our life. And she said, "God," she goes, "that's really tough." I was like, "Well, think of it this way. One way we'll end up paying somebody else's mortgage for the rest of our lives probably or for a long time." I said, "The other way, we're gonna have a peace of mind and a place for our babies." And she
Hmm.
completely agreed. So once we nailed down that it was Maryland and stuff, and I came out here and I checked out the schools for the kids and fishing, I said, "Yep, that's it." And so then we ended up out here.
Nice.
But yeah, yeah. So after that first season, kayak fishing out of the little boat,
Mhm.
um, I called a former. They're a whitewater school now. They don't sell boats anymore, but Valley Mill Kayak. Um, Jim Bewley. He's one of the first people I ever really became friends with in this kayak world. That was very familiar with Jackson's, and I called him one day. I found an ad online, and it said that he had a big tuna on clearance, and it was like $500 off or $600 off. And I had a tournament. I called him up and I said, "Hey, do you still have this big tuna?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Okay, well, my name is Josh Evans. I'll be there tomorrow to buy it, and then I have a tournament the next day, and I'm gonna go win the tournament." And he's looking at me like, "Yo, what?" Like, okay, I don't care. You just come buy this boat. So I did, and sure enough, I went out. We fished. It was February on Lake Anna out here, and the whole main lake was frozen over, but they have a warm side of the lake where they do power generation, and that's where the tournament
Mhm.
was. So it was like sub-freezing temperatures, just rough. Every time you'd cast, your line guides would ice over. You have to dip your rod in the water to keep fishing. Um, Ended up getting a winning limit on my camera, and I stood up to relieve myself. I fell in the water,
Oh man.
and yeah, I hadn't I didn't know my kayak well, and I hadn't secured my seat properly, and it popped up, and I went in the water, and almost died that day. Got had a couple good buddies that came and helped fish me out and helped me drain my boat out and everything else. But I won, and from then on, I was pretty much solidified that yeah, I'm gonna do this kayak thing. I think I can do pretty good at it. Um, Shortly thereafter, our old team manager Aaron Steiger reached out to me, and he
Mhm.
said, "Hey, I've been following you for a while on social media. You're a family man. I think you'd represent our brand well. You seem to love Jackson's. Would you like to be a member of the team?" And I said, "Well, what does that entail?" And we discussed, the kind of the outline, the requirements, and what's expected of me. And he asked what I expected of Jackson. And I've been with the brand ever since, man. It's not like any other company I've worked with. I've had different partnerships and sponsorships and things like that with other brands, and Jackson, I've seen it go through so many transitions and changes and growth and evolutions. But the one thing that's always remained pretty much a consistent is that it feels like a family. And that's something that I value very much. Family to me is the most important thing in my world. And to find a kayak that one I love paddling and am comfortable in, but also a brand that's backed by a family that feels the same way is damn important to me. So here I am.
That's it's a heck of a story, dude. There's a lot to elaborate on there, really. Um, so I mean, what was it completely besides that gar and that win and the heroes on the water that really solidified that this is something you want to do and kind of pulled you away from that dream of the boat?
I'll tell you what, I've got some issues. I'll be 100% transparent. I've got some brain issues and some body issues and other things. And one of the things that I found so liberating was being out on a lake by myself with nothing but, the noise of silence, so to speak.
Mhm.
Soaking in the sights and hearing every little subtle noise, the splashes and the birds and the frogs and a doe that's crashing through the brush or whatever. And it was just something that it just like really I had a couple different times where it really just I soaked it in and I sat on the lake and got teary-eyed almost, because I was like, damn, like this is what feeling good feels like. Because for a long time I didn't feel good. Like I said, I went through a lot of stuff mentally and I've lost a lot of friends and family. I went through kind of a stint where it seems like every year I lost one of my sisters, then I lost my mother, then I lost another sister, then I lost my brother, and it compounds. And um, my wife has been a rock for me the whole time. She's always been very supportive and tried to help, but there's also a piece where no one person or thing, and my kids have helped a lot too. Seeing them smile and having to push through the painful stuff because of them and putting on a good face, but there are times where even that, it's hard to hide tears or it's hard to hide pain. And I found that getting out on the water, gave me that peace of mind. I didn't hear all the noise of all the stressors and all the different things that I was always worried about, and the long work weeks and I got to pay these bills and I got to make sure that, these people are appeased with whatever I'm doing at work or outside of work. It was always something too. And when I'm
Mhm.
on the water, when I was on the water, none of that mattered. And, um, aside from the obvious financial benefits of it, and not having to pay basically a mortgage payment on a floating piece of floating boat with a motor on the back. Um, it was again that peace of mind, and it's something that some people are like, how could you pay $3,000-4,000 for a kayak, right? And all the gear that goes on it, and if you priced out one of my boats, you'd probably be like, dude, are you serious?
Yeah,
Um,
they get expensive nowadays,
but I'll tell you
especially
what,
when you collect it.
Yeah. But I will say that a peace of mind, that peace of mind, and that freedom of just being able to exhale and breathe,
Mhm.
you know, um, and just it's just you with nature, whether you want to fish or just float and fall asleep in the lake, it don't matter. There's something about that that's priceless. So, that's something that I tell a lot of people when we talk about like, well, why don't you get a boat? All right, cool. I'm sitting out there and I'm smelling exhaust and I can only go certain places. Whereas this, I can go anywhere. And if I want to
Mhm.
be completely surrounded by people, cool. But if I want to be solo dolo out in the middle of nowhere in the back of some crazy little creek, I'm gonna do that too. And guess what? Can't do that in a bass boat. So that's
How
kind of the biggest deciding factor for me.
how has your path and what you've been through and some of the feelings, how much more important has that made something like Heroes on the Water to you? And how have you continued to advocate for that group as times went on?
Absolutely. So I used to do a lot of guiding with them, and helping out, especially with the main Maryland chapter. I don't do it as much. I used to do fundraising, all that. I don't do it as much anymore. It's actually been quite a while. I still advocate for them and spread the message about them and refer a lot of different veterans that I encounter to them initially. Um,
Mhm.
but I also found that, the hustle and bustle and craziness of my life and my schedule, which is ever changing, doesn't allow me to commit to the level that I'd like to. I was on their leadership team for a few years and all that, and I still stay in contact with a lot of the guys. Rudy, obviously, I talk to Rudy pretty regularly. Um, and Cooper, he's the old airborne Army guy. He runs the Maryland chapter. I talk to him pretty
Mhm.
frequently, and I'll still give my advice or thoughts on things, or you know tell them best conditions, times, baits, that type of stuff. So I still try to help out a little bit, and I still send a lot of folks their way. But and that mission, their mission is, I think, crucial into one, introducing veterans, first responders, and active duty folks, introducing them to kayak fishing, because I think that's something that, you know, even if somebody sees a kayak at Dick's, right, just as an example,
Mhm.
some might be hesitant. "Oh, I don't want to spend the money. I don't know if I'm going to like it." This gives people an opportunity to get out there in a boat and get gear for free to use for the day, um, and experience what, you know, a lot of us who do this regularly now experience the why behind it. And I mean, I've seen both guys and girls get out there, and same thing, crazy PTSD and other stuff going on, and you'll find them floating in the middle of the lake, sleeping, snoring, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And you stay close by so you can keep an eye on them in case they decide to wake up and fall in the water, but you let them sleep and let them just enjoy it, because some of those folks don't sleep at all, you know.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty powerful thing if you ask me.
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing about paddling. It doesn't necessarily have to be about the fishing. It can just be about the relaxations, whatever it is. Paddling is interesting in the fact that you can enjoy it in a multitude of ways, and I think that's definitely one of the things that's made it special for a lot of people out there, from moms to grandmas to guys like yourself and so many others. It's absolutely amazing what paddling has done for so many. Now, as we talk about the Heroes on the Water thing, you're also in the tournament scene, starting in the tournament scene, man. You look at those early days of kayak fishing tournaments, like you said, the SD cards and the different things now. Are you surprised when you look at where it is today, how far it's actually come?
I wouldn't say that I'm surprised, because there was already inklings of what was to come. Um, between, I mean, even from that very first kayak tournament that I went to, and I saw the crazy elaborate setups, um, with it was only usually one graph at the time, and I had the smallest one, obviously. But you know, um, things like the Torpedo when it first came out, right? Um, that was I don't like the term game changer, but that really did change things for a lot of folks. It obviously, having a electric motor on your kayak, a lot of folks say, "Well, that's not kayaking anymore." Who says? You know what I'm saying? Like, for real. Like, I get it from a tournament aspect, it gets you there faster, but if that means, implementing or integrating a motor on your kayak means that somebody who can't paddle because they got shoulder issues or neck issues or back issues or knee issues, they can't paddle or pedal, means that they can still get on the water and enjoy themselves. Why wouldn't you want to allow that? Why would you want to deter somebody from finding that peace of mind or finding that enjoyment and enjoying it because it's not, true kayaking? Like, dude, like, stay in your lane. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I feel about it. Um, I don't know, I'm kind of passionate about that. Like, I love to paddle, but I also have bum shoulders, and I had a spinal fusion in my neck and titanium disc in my lower back. I've had both knees worked on. Like, it doesn't always work like that for me. And the fact
Huh?
that I have a motor slapped on the stern, guess what? Now I can stay competitive. I can stay doing those things.
Yeah.
So I never, I don't say, I wouldn't say I anticipated it getting to the place where it is now, where, you know, as a kid, I dreamed of walking across the Bassmaster stage, and now, X number of years later, 40 something years later, it's actually happening, right? Kayak anglers are holding up blue trophies and walking across the classic stage, and I never anticipated. So to see the growth and see good buddies of mine, running the different national trails to great success, um, with the pinnacle being the Bassmaster, really for me, I think is a beautiful thing, absolutely beautiful. And then also, we've got guys like yourself and Jason Cassidy. You guys are running the JK Trail and doing that on a national, but it's a cool twist because it's a grassroots based national tournament, right? You've had to do well in your state and in your grassroots level tournament to make it to that championship. So I really like what you guys have done with that, because you've kept it. There's the guys that are the PKAs, right? The pro kayaking
Oh,
course
yeah.
that are filtered through that, but it feels a lot more grassroots. It feels a lot more the local, Saturday special trail, that now is, you got the opportunity and going on kind of a bigger stage and competing against guys from across the nation who maybe are only weekend warriors and only can get out, once a month to fish and just happen to do well in their state. So I think it's a cool twist on the national scene, and refreshing to a degree because not everybody is all decked out, and it helps to bring it back to that simplicity aspect of it, in my opinion.
Yeah, and for us, I think, one of the things that we looked at with that as a whole is with the USA Bass and JK Trail is not everybody's got a million vacation days, unfortunately. We all wish we had
But
more.
yeah,
And, one of the things that was appealing to that for so many was the fact that, they can work all week. They don't have to take off work. And then they can show up at one of the local lakes that's maybe only a couple hours away or an hour away or
right,
shoot 5 minutes down the road and go out and get a derby in. And they're still gaining points to go to a bigger championship event that pays out good. And, it's
right.
neat. And I think everybody at Jackson's pretty excited about it and to see where it goes. And you know, it grew a little bit again this year, and it's hopefully going to continue to grow again next year. And yeah, we'll see where she lands. Hopefully, we'll get to have you down at the championship next year. You qualified this year, but as
Yeah.
schedules wouldn't allow, yeah, you qualified.
Well, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
yeah, you're
Hmm.
in.
Hmm.
But
I was
yeah,
I
it's
was unaware, and it is on my birthday, I believe, isn't it?
17th,
October
18th,
19th?
and 19th. Yeah, 19th is the second day. Yeah, second day.
You got me thinking, 'cause right now I'm fishing the no limit, but
It's
we'll
a
see.
ride. You and Rudy can ride together.
Well, I'll
Um,
tell you. Yeah, we'll talk about that again later.
but yeah, so I mean, what do you think's next? Like when you look at this kayak fishing landscape, obviously changes are imminent. I mean, we're seeing changes in the top tier boat leagues right now, like it's going out of style. Just everybody's trying to adjust for economy. Everybody's, different sponsor money's coming, it's going. It's
Yeah.
just we're at a evolution period in fishing altogether right now. Where do you think kayak fishing's going to land? Do you think the landscape's going to change? Do you think, things will come, things will go?
Ah, it's hard to say. I know that, COVID. I hate even thinking about COVID anymore, but during COVID, it changed the landscape of the entire outdoor industry very much so.
Oh, for
It's
sure.
so many people out of work or not working and out on the water, or out in the woods, or out in wherever, and all these companies, the majority of the big kayak companies, they overproduced, and
Uh-huh.
even the companies like Jackson who didn't overproduce, still saw, you know oh man, like all of a sudden everybody's either back to work, some of them are still working from home, but now they're back to work. And the kayak sales and associated product sales all kind of slowed way down, right?
Mhm.
So now you're seeing this influx of previous year model boats that are just sitting. And you have, mom and pop shops going, oh dang, what do we do? And so there's clearances and all this crazy stuff going on. And all the
Mhm.
companies have kind of been trying to have to adapt and overcome. Um, I don't think that it's gonna stay like that. I'm not gonna get into politics, but I will say that I hope that whatever happens next, with the leadership of our nation helps impact our economy in a positive way. Because I haven't been super happy with what's been going on in that regard. And I know a lot of
Really
folks.
happy.
It's been tough, man. It's been real tough. And
Yeah, it hits a lot of people.
you know, um, and at the same time, you still have brands coming out with boats that are bigger and more expensive, and it's crazy.
Mhm.
Um, I think at some point, I don't know when, I really don't, but I think at some point it's going to continue to. There's going to be an evolution, and you're going to have, you know, you already have the guys like I said, the PKAs that all they do is tournament fish, and they travel around, and
Uh,
I don't know how the heck they survive. Most of them don't have families at home, so that helps. But there's some that do even, and they do it, and
no,
I
yeah.
rack my brain like how. But I think there'll be a separation, and you'll have higher entry level events that'll be much smaller as far as number of participants, and then you're going to see more of a growth of there still will be national trails like Bassmaster that are all inclusive, and the USA Bass and JK Trail that are all inclusive, and I think that those are all going to gain even more traction. Um, Boat sales. I think you're going to see a decline in the expensive model boats. You're still going to have all the people that want to outdo the next guy with the newest, greatest, biggest boat. But I think the bread and butter for kayak companies, at least for the next couple years, is a little more minimal approach. Sure, you want to provide features that a kayak that's feature rich as possible, but you also want to kind of combine that with a user friendly price point, right? Not necessarily like, oh, we're gonna all of a sudden start making $500 kayaks. No, that's not profitable and that's not sustainable either. Um, but I think that there has to be, I don't know, there has to be a little bit of a shift there, finding those ways to integrate certain features, recesses and changed up floors and different things like that to accommodate boards and I mean, I could go on for days with this really, but I think that there's going to be a little more gravitation. I mean, look at what happened with motors. Torpedo has
Uh-huh.
been the number one selling motor for God knows how long, right? Newport came out and flipped them on their head. They said, we're going to offer a motor that's comparable to your biggest, best motor, way cheaper. And yeah,
Yep.
you have to incorporate your own batteries, but there's so many different battery solutions out there now, or combinations now that, you know, now they've taken a big bulk of that business. Yes, there's, people that are pros and cons on both sides of that fence, but at the end of the day, they provided the consumer with an option. Um,
Hmm.
and a choice, which is something that I think every industry and every product should have. There should be some competition because otherwise you get outrageously overpriced things. Um, but back to this more minimal approach. If you're able to buy a Newport and then you can put the rest of that money towards a nice Jackson, well, hey, like, you know what I'm saying? You were able to stretch that dollar a little further, especially right now when the money's a little tighter. So I really see that evolution continuing to occur and kind of to mature and morph a little bit. Um, Feature rich boats that aren't unattainable and accessories that follow suit.
Yeah.
Personally, that's what I see.
The accessories to follow suit's an interesting topic because graphs just keep going up, the screens keep getting bigger, the crystals keep
Right.
getting better, and
Yeah.
that'll be interesting. What I mean, Lowrance put out something that's very very unique. It's a great package that they just launched with the Eagle. So it'll be cool to see how that one plays out as far as a affordable technology to kind of
Well,
disperse of their Elite TI series or whatever you want to call that one.
right.
Um, but so you don't see a. You think there'll ever be a time when? I mean, obviously, the other trail besides Bassmaster, the BOS, they they kind of they held out. They was one of the last ones on letting motors run.
Yeah.
Do you ever think that there will be another trail that comes along that maybe sees the marketing value to go with a trail that is human powered again?
No. Honestly, I don't. I mean, you see what happened with BOS this season. I think part of that was the schedule choice that they went with, but I think
Mhm.
also a large part of that in seeing the Bassmaster participation grow versus the BOS, which was declined pretty severely this year. A
Mhm.
lot of it had to do with motor usage, and again, BOS started allowing motors in I think all but two of their events this year, so that
Yeah, I think
helped a
the
little.
river events.
But I think that the schedule choice was also not the greatest this season. That's what I've heard. I talked to a lot of folks around the industry, both anglers and other folks, and that was kind of a common thing. Now I think they'll bounce back next year for sure. I think
Mhm.
that um, they're gonna change some things up, make things fun. And I think that kind of more to the point of your question, I don't know that there will be any trails. I mean, there's still like kayak anglers out here. They're
Oh yeah.
predominantly in PA, and they have a chapter thing in New York and a couple other spots. Kayak anglers, I don't even know if they're staying completely motorless. They have been since I started really, and I think just
Mhm.
recently they may have, but I don't know. I haven't fished our events in forever. Um, but as far as a national trail thing, you may see some one-off events like, oh, hey, we're gonna do this particular event, no motors, no graphs, some crazy spin-off. And I think that would draw cool attention, but I don't think it's sustainable for a national trail to do that for an entire year, personally. not with again the advancement, especially with the incorporation of motors, and the price points coming down on those. I don't see it being something that will happen again, honestly.
Interesting. That's gotta ask. You don't know unless you ask. Nobody has ever asked anybody, never had that conversation. So I wanted to ask it. Um,
Something I've thought
so
about a
as
bit
far,
actually. We talk about that kind of
I've thought
stuff.
about it a lot.
Yeah,
I've thought about it a lot. My answer is a little bit different. Um, yeah, I kind of like it from a standpoint of marketing, and I'll tell you why. Because if you're the viewer, like if you're watching it on TV, let's say, just hypothetical, it's all hypothetical. Not that I have a problem with motors. Um,
right.
hypothetically, if you're watching it on TV, how much more interesting is it to say Josh Evans makes a run? And it's like he found this spot and he knows like he's got to get back. You've got to be back in by time X. How much more
Right.
interesting is it to the TV viewer? Like, is he gonna get back?
You know, I could see that, like the Furious paddling back, and I remember
Yeah,
back to my
like
early
there's
tournament
just
years.
like it adds an element of drama for TV. It adds TV drama. I think that's my best way to word it. It could add an element of TV drama that's not in normal like Bassmaster or anything like that that
Right.
we have as a community that nobody else can replicate.
Tell you what, I could see that gaining a huge amount of traction once we get to the space where we have the non-endemic sponsors that are, pumping money into the sport, like the bass
Mhm,
boat side does, right? And you have an event that's televised and it's promoted as 100% man-powered, no
mhm,
graphs or whatever it might be, and the prize purse is pretty substantial and it's televised. You have that happen, and you're gonna have every PKA that can paddle or pedal out there without any of their gear on their boats ready to go. That that one type of event, if you could do that, that could be a catalyst for something, a series
mhm,
going like that. But I think that it would have to be televised nationally, and I'm not saying anything bad about some of the outdoor, one-off channels and stuff that I've seen fishing stuff on before. But if you can get to
mhm.
like Outdoor Channel or on ESPN, one of their
Pursuit,
variants,
yeah,
or Fox. I mean, if
yeah,
you could get televised on that level where you get a national audience that's engaged and interested, then yeah. I mean, it reminds me kind of when you were describing that, I started thinking back to like I used to watch a lot of surf competitions, right? And I grew up in Surf City, USA for a little while, right out there in Huntington, and you'd see guys battling for a wave, and they're both
mhm. Oh,
going,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Who's gonna get the wave? And it was like, "Oh, man, this is tense," you know what I mean? And they get on and they
yeah,
kill a barrel, and it's just like, "Yo, that was insane." Okay, so, then I think back to the early years of fishing with MKBF, and we had Jedediah Plunkett, who
mhm,
was top 5 in the nation for God knows how many years, and he won Angler of the Year for us, I think 3 or 4 years straight. Dude was a machine. I mean, just like yoked, perfect
mhm,
chiseled, whatever. And you'd get out
mhm,
there with the motor, and we'd have shotgun starts, and Jed would be he'd be paddling, and he'd be going faster
mhm.
than the guys with the motors.
Yep.
I can picture that on a national level if it's televised, and that would be cool as hell to see. But I
It
think
would
we're
be. It
still
would be a lot. And
we're a ways out from that.
I'm not even saying take away like graphs or anything. I let them keep all that fun stuff. But if you took away the motor and you added that element of drama, because like how far would you? You're gonna have some guys push it. They will push
Yeah.
it. Now some of
Oh
them
yeah.
will mess up and push too far, but
Right.
it kind of just for I don't know, big fish, big drama, right?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, that's one of the things I do like about, like, Hobie Worlds, right?
Hmm.
When they have their big shotgun starts and everybody's playing bumper boats on the way out, and spinning each other out and stuff, like, that's
Oh
kinda
yeah,
cool, man. That's a cool experience to see and witness firsthand. If you can get that televised on a national level and get an audience engaged that's into other sports and like, "Oh, yo, what's this? I've fishing, but with a twist," basically, right? Because a lot of people still to this day are
yeah,
like, "You kayak fish competitively, nationally? Like, what?" Like, they
yeah.
don't really fully grasp it or they haven't seen it, and I think that if it's thrown in their face a little more and shown to them in a palatable way, I think that it could go a
Yeah,
long way.
and dude, you put that on TV like that, and like it's a series, and guys are, and this is all this is not happening. This is hypothetical. Me and Josh are just shooting the breeze.
You're good.
Um, nobody freak out. But like, how much better care of like themselves would these guys take? I mean, you see like the Elite Series guys like Brandon Paul and Carl Jacobson, they're all out there running, doing their
Correct.
thing. Everybody's in shape. Could you imagine how much like if these kayak guys were like doing this for 8 to 10 tournaments and it was like a big series on the big lakes that we're fishing now?
Right.
I mean, there's gonna be some
Yeah.
serious. I mean, it's gonna be takeoff's gonna be serious.
We have to start testing for steroids, man.
We would have to have a
Have some guys just like, oh, throwing kayaks, and it would just be wild,
Lance
man.
Armstrong would be trying to get in.
Yeah, like, nah, bro, you can't do that.
You can't juice, you can't be on it.
Yeah, stay
But
away from my FD.
that boat would be everybody's worst nightmare
Mm-hmm.
very
Throw that
quickly.
gnar out, get that gnar out there,
Yeah.
and let's get it. Boy, that thing moves.
Yeah. It'd be everybody's worst nightmare real quick, real fast because
Yes,
it's one of the
sir.
faster pedal boats on the market. It
It
is.
is, and for a big boat, you're just like, "Yo, really?" Like, wow. Like, I remember
Mhm.
the very f I got to try out one of the pre-production models with Jameson when we did that shoot, and
Mhm.
I was pleasantly taken back. I was just like, "Yo, wait a minute, what?" Like, this boat
Yeah.
gets
Lifts up
up.
a little bit in the front, and you're like, "Ooh,
Yeah.
hello."
Oh, dude. Yeah, especially with me and the seat trim back, boy, it gets up like, it looks like
Mhm.
a race car almost, you know? He was tripping out because he had his motor, his Torpedo on the back of his camera boat, and I was
Mhm.
getting it, and I was staying up with him, and he's like, "Yeah, dude, this is the truth." And I was like, "You sure it is?" So, we've definitely come a long way.
Oh, for sure, for sure. No, that's a neat conversation, and I'm glad we had it because, like, you just don't get to have offbeat conversations like that. I mean, the
No.
kayak industry's headed the way it's headed, but it's good to have that hypothetical thought process and just say, "Well, what if this happened? Would it
Yeah,
be? Would people watch it? Would it be? Would people be interested? Would it grow our brand of the sport?" There's a good
I think
question for you.
I think so. I mean, Jackson has been at the forefront of a lot of evolution in kayak fishing and competitive kayak fishing. I think a lot more than people would ever really acknowledge, all the way back to the Kusa, which was
Mhm,
one of the very first, you know, what is it, specialty designed kayaks, for fishing rivers, and you've seen that now. Almost every company is they follow suit now, and they all have their own line of, X brand doing this and that, and oh, this is perfect for this condition and that. and
mhm,
and I feel like we've led the way in that. And then you look at the pedal drives, and the evolution of the FD. You know, everybody else has either a bike style or they have the little flippers, but then the
mhm,
FD, dude, I hit a tree stump, I hit something else. I still have yet in all the years that the FD has been around, every variant of it, I have yet to break a prop. Um,
mhm. I haven't
you
either.
know, and the Mark IV is silky smooth. So, I just think about different ways that we have either led the way or we have evolved a present offering into something even better. And I think that, you know, um, back to a series like you were talking about, kind of like that, a great reset type of series, I guess you would call it.
Yeah,
I think that we could really excel in that if we consulted the right folks and did the right things. And I think the biggest thing would be listening to the anglers in the audience, right?
mhm,
Um, because that's something Steve has been really successful with Bassmaster, right? He took a series that you would have thought on paper was money and was failing, honestly, because the guy in charge of the kayak series didn't listen. Steve came in. Steve was already very reputable, well known, and he said, "Hey guys, how can we fix this?" And he didn't just ask the question; he listened to the answers. Could you implement every suggestion and idea? No, but listening to the majority and applying those things and showing the people that are throwing their hard-earned money into these tournaments that you care and that you want them to have a great experience. I think any tournament director does that and puts that at the forefront of why they're doing it and their intentions, I think is going to be successful. And I think that if we were to lead the charge on like a no motors type of a series, and getting it televised and things like that, I think that really shaping it to what the anglers want would be another key component.
Well, and one of my thought, and I'll bury us into this a little bit more. One of my thoughts with it has always been I grew up riding dirt bikes, enjoyed Supercross, the outdoor nationals, just absolutely loved it. ATV racing's always been there. It's always been ATV racing's the same thing. I mean, these guys are going out, they're doing running the same tracks, they're doing everything just the same as the Supercross guys. But at the end of the day, their brand never really equaled up to what Supercross was because they had four wheels. It was the same thing. It wasn't as cool, didn't make it as great. So,
Safer version, right?
hypothetically, when you think about what we're doing and what separates us from a bass boat, and when you add motors and different things like that to the kayak side of it, yes, we get more people out there. Yes, we it's a great thing for the sport. We can go further, faster. We can do all those things. But what makes us at that point stand out from the big boat world? Not much.
I mean,
So how do we break that barrier?
I think again, it's almost like a great reset. You can still have maybe the
Mhm.
technologies that you want on the kayak, but take away some of those creature comforts like the motor. I do think that depending, if you took away the motors, that would alienate a portion of competitors that might want to only compete with motors
Oh,
because of
for sure.
handicaps or things like that.
For
And
sure.
allowing it, I don't know that that would be fair either. Um,
Mhm.
but at the same time, you would be showing the guy or girl that's sitting at home on the couch watching the event live on TV that, okay, I could be competitive. I can go out and make money and be competitive in this sport, and I don't need a motor. I don't need, a forward-facing sonar and all this other stuff. And I think that would be part of that great reset, so to speak. Will it ever happen? I don't know, but I think it would be something cool to see for
It's
sure.
interesting. It's interesting to think about. Evan's got a great statement here. The ethical aspect of our sport, CRP, very true. But from one of the things that I think that Josh and I would say is if you've got the boaters and what MLF does is grand. They catch away release. Bassmaster obviously they're gonna no matter what happens, these bigger brands are gonna tell you that hey, it's all about all these fish are released, all these fish go home. Um, so I mean, do they? Probably not.
No,
But yes, fish kills happen. We've all seen them. We've all been at that boat ramp. But you
yep.
know, our message versus their message that'll always be a tough one for us to get out.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you, the whole, trying to get bass boats to adopt CPR over, filling up their live well with bass and dumping them around all day in hot water and
Mhm.
all that. Like that's it's a slow uphill battle. I will say here in
Mhm.
Maryland, we have a kind of a black bass advisory committee, and they're actually really leaning towards that during the summertime, potentially pushing tournaments
Yeah.
to a CPR type of format. I don't know how they're going to accomplish it 100% just yet, but I will say that the fact that they're even having the conversations is great progress. Um,
Yeah.
you know,
It is.
big shout out to Evan, by the way. He's one of the co-founders of Chesapeake Reel Masters, who was it started up this season, um, and I jumped in with them, on top of fishing my regular stuff because it was local and they held events on all tidal fisheries out here, which are my favorites, and I just won Angler of the Year with that series. So
Yes.
Evan is one of
Congratulations.
one of the men behind that right there, and
Look at it.
something I'm
Look
something
at
I'm
it.
super proud of. You feel me? So shout out to my boy Evan and Carl Wynn out there at CRM. They're doing some beautiful things. But anyways, yeah,
Well,
I had to say that because them dudes are pretty spectacular. Mr. Kyle was cracking. Hello, hello.
no, no, dude. We kind of like totally got off on a tangent anyway. I don't know where we was going or why we went that way, but we did.
My
And
bad.
it was great. It was great
For
thought
sure.
process. I've not said that online, so probably get some negative hate comments in my email inbox here later.
Gonna
Um,
be all right. They're gonna be all right. Hey, can
yeah,
can you give me one? Give me 1 second, like 2 seconds.
yeah, 2
All right.
seconds.
Be right back.
Please pause for your commercial break by Orion Coolers. And you timed that perfect.
Hey.
So as let's move on from that topic onto the next one, even though that was a fun one.
Oh,
So what's next for Josh Evans, man?
well, a lot of things, really. Um, we're still talking 2024 season. I have the Ike Foundation, which is a charity Mike Iaconelli has that gets kids from kind of underserved areas out on the water fishing. They're holding a kayak tournament on my favorite river, the Susquehanna, this weekend. So I am going to go compete in that. Um, and then next weekend we have the Mid Atlantic Kayak Bass Fishing Series Tournament of Champions, which is the top 15 anglers from AOI competing it out on a 2-day event. And what's special about that is, so I've never, up until this season, I had never won an Angler of the Year title before. In all the years I've been doing this, I've come in second countless times, but never won it. This year, uh, I just won Chesapeake Real Masters Angler of the Year, and I went into that championship sitting tied for second. I'm going into MAKBF's Tournament of Champions, the kind of deciding event of the season, sitting tied for third. So I have an outside chance of not only achieving one, but two Angler of the Year titles if I
Oh,
do well
nice.
next weekend. So that's kind of cool, man. I don't know. I when I won the CRM one a couple weekends ago, I broke down in tears when I was getting the awards because it's just all the time on the water and time away from the family and all the learning um, the learning moments that have happened over these years finally kind of all fell into place at the same time. And now in this crazy 2024 season, I this is the first year I haven't traveled all over the nation competing nationally, and I smacked them pretty good locally. So here I am competing for my second one in the same season, which is damn insane to me.
And dude, like Angler of the Year, I don't care if there's 10 people in the tournament for however many tournaments there is, or there's 100. Angler of the Year is tough to win. You have to be like, you got to be consistent. You got to day
Yeah,
in, day out beat everybody, no matter who it is.
yeah, absolutely, and that's the thing. So like with Chesapeake Real Masters, I hadn't won a single event all season. I've gotten second. I got all my plaques sitting here because I want to make sure I got it right. But I had second place, two third places. I think out of the 8 events I finished, every single one of them was a top 10 finish. And it positioned me. I was sitting in first for Angler of the Year the entire season, and the last couple I couldn't compete. And my buddy Jesse came in. Well, we fished a 2-day summer. It was two back-to-back events, and I think he won both of them. And he slid right before the last event of the year, before that Battle of the Best. He slid into first place, and I was like, "Oh my God, what just happened?" I was shell shocked, and nervous and didn't sleep and all that. And then went in there and it was just lights out, man. Um, so I'm feeling very fortunate to be in the position and have fished cleanly and consistently all season to be in the position I'm in now. And now it's just I'm not the best river fisherman, and the talk is going to be on the Goldsboro section of the Susquehanna, which is a river fishery. But I think a lot of my tidal fishing techniques and stuff are going to play in well to it, and I got a shot. So that's all that I need. It's a shot, right?
That's all
Um,
you can ask for, man.
yeah. uh, kind of moving forward, right? Literally, right when I'm done with the talk, I get on the road. I'll finish up there at like 4 or 5 p.m. when the awards is done, and I get right on the road and start driving down to Tennessee, go to Sparta,
Hmm.
to go be a part of the Jackson Kayak Dealer Summit, which is super cool because I get to interact with all of our dealers from North America, really, and I think that, or a
Hmm.
lot of them, and I think that's going to be pretty cool. Get to meet some folks that I haven't met in my previous trips to the factory, and talk shop. And I don't know, I'm just excited about that experience. Absolutely, Charlie P. I will see you in a few weeks, my boy.
Yep.
Um, I what do I have on the horizon? I'll tell you what, I am retired right now. I retired in October officially.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
and yeah, 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 yeah. So there is one particular opportunity that I don't know when it's going to officially become available within uh, JK, but I'm very hopeful that I could earn the trust of the powers that be and take on additional responsibilities in the company. So we shall see.
There you go.
That,
I like it. I
that's
like it.
my target goal for the end of this year, beginning of next year. So we'll see what happens with that. But in the meantime, I just want to keep on grinding, helping people learn how to jump in kayaks and do great things, and continually treating people good, and hopefully influencing other people to do the same, because there's not enough of that in this world.
Definitely not. Definitely not, man. Well, we've made it to the hour mark, dude. So I want to give you the chance to give a shout out to anybody that you need to give a shout out to and tell the people where to find more Josh Evans on the socials.
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, shout out to my wife Rita Sam Evans. She is my rock. She's my everything. She just woke up to get ready for work. She works nights. Um, all my kiddos, Miracle, Eden, Emma, and Joshua, LJ. Um, you know, they help support me and they keep me up when I'm down. Um, and so yeah, I owe them my world. As far as sponsors go, obviously Jackson Kayak and Orion Coolers, they've done phenomenal things for me, and I've really been blessed to work with both of these brands for a very long time, and be able to influence kind of the direction of our boats and some of the designs, and provide, I think, pretty valuable feedback. So I think that's been dope, and they've supported my kayak journey this whole time. So super stoked to work with them now and hopefully forever, honestly. Um, iRod Fishing, right there, Mr. Matt Newman out in California, uh, makes my favorite rods, and they're damn good. So if you haven't checked them out, holla at your boy. I will hand you a couple of mine and let you go out and do some work. But phenomenal. Aside from that, P Line, Malone Auto Racks, Yakima, Bending Branches. Um, they all support me and help me and partner with me to allow me to get on the water and help facilitate kind of that easier experience for me, both financially and or with products, and the products that I believe in. I don't I've seen a lot of folks, and I'm not going to get on a tangent, I promise, but there's a lot of folks that'll just be like, oh, you want to give me a check, cool, let me go promote whatever X product is, right, whatever widget you got. That ain't me. If I use your product in any form or facet, it's because I've used it for a pretty good amount of time and I believe in it. And if I'm gonna use it and recommend it to people, it better be damn good. So any of those brands that I just mentioned, don't hesitate trying them out for sure. And obviously, last but not least, P Line. They make some phenomenal line. They have enabled me to cash a whole bunch of checks this year and previous years too. So pretty stoked on that. All in all, I just want to say thank you to all my friends, my family, and my friends. There's been people throughout this journey, and I'm still not done on this journey, but there's been people throughout the journey that have contributed greatly to my success, whether it be, again, help me hold my head up when it's down, whether it's teaching me things on and off the water and help me become a more complete angler or a more complete man. Um, I appreciate and love every one of you guys. Like, I sincerely mean that, because without you, I wouldn't be here. Um, Aside from that, man, just everybody treat each other with respect and love. It goes a long damn way.
Yeah. Well, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed Josh's story. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with another brand new Doc Talk. It'll be panel week. So, there's one.
I got one more thing. If you like custom painted baits, holler at me. I do some pretty okay work. Mex Custom Baits. I promise you, you will be a pleased little pony if you hit me up on that. Anyways, tight line, sharp minds. Sorry for interrupting. Love y'all.
See you guys. We'll be back.